The message had been transmitted 50 years ago, a beacon of hope and curiosity fired into the darkness. Humanity had pooled its collective resources, harnessing the full power of the Arecibo dish one final time before its decommissioning. The broadcast contained everything they thought important: mathematics, biology, art, music, and finally an invitation. We're here waiting for you. For decades, the stars remained silent. Director Thomas Reed stared at the observatory's main display screen, the same one he had stared at for the past 20 years. At 65, his once dark hair had turned silver, but his eyes still held the same determination they had when he first joined SETI as a young scientist. "Any changes, Ellie?" he asked, knowing the answer before his deputy director could respond. "Nothing, sir. Same background radiation as always." Ellie Walker had been with him for 15 years, her dedication matching his own. They had weathered budget cuts, public ridicule, and political pressure, but they persisted in their vigil. Thomas nodded and turned back to his coffee, now cold from neglect. The world had largely forgotten about the message. The initial excitement had waned after a few years of silence, and funding for SETI had been slashed to a skeleton crew. Now, only the most dedicated remained. The soft hum of equipment filled the room, a lullaby to those who had spent their lives listening to the cosmos. The night shift was always quiet, especially on the remote mountaintop that housed their facility. Then, everything changed. A sharp tone cut through the stillness, causing Thomas to spill his coffee. The alert system, dormant for so long, had awakened. "We've got something." Ellie's voice cracked with excitement as her fingers flew across the keyboard. It's structured, Thomas. Definitely not natural." Thomas rushed to her station, heart pounding. "Put it through the filters, check for terrestrial origins." "Already done. It's coming from HD 219134, 16 light-years away." The signal repeats exactly every 90 seconds. The room erupted into controlled chaos as dormant protocols were activated. Scientists who had been sleeping in nearby quarters rushed in, hair disheveled but eyes alert. "It's responding to our message," Thomas whispered, almost to himself. After 50 years, the initial data analysis confirmed what they all suspected. This was no cosmic accident or misinterpreted noise. The signal contained mathematical sequences that mirrored those sent in humanity's original message. More importantly, embedded within were new sequences, a response and, potentially, instructions. "They included coordinates," said James, their lead mathematician after hours of analysis. "And what appears to be a time frame." "They're coming?" Thomas asked, his voice barely audible. "That's my interpretation. They received our invitation, and now they're accepting." News of the response spread quickly despite attempts to keep it contained. Governments convened emergency sessions, religious leaders offered interpretations, and ordinary citizens looked to the stars with renewed wonder and fear. The scientific community worked tirelessly to decode more of the message. As weeks passed, their understanding grew. The visitors, the name humanity had settled on, were approximately 30 years away at their travel speed. They had been observing Earth for centuries before humans ever sent their message, watching the development of civilization with interest. "They were waiting for us to reach out," Thomas explained at a press conference 6 months after the signal's reception. "They have a policy of non-interference until a species actively seeks contact." The announcement sparked a global renaissance. Knowing that they were no longer alone in the universe and that they would meet their cosmic neighbors within a generation, humanity found new purpose. International conflicts cooled as leaders recognized the need for unity and preparation for first contact. Resources previously devoted to warfare were redirected to space infrastructure and education. Thomas, despite his age, found himself energized by the developments. He led the international commission established to prepare for the visitors' arrival, bringing together scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts from around the world. "We have 30 years, he told his team during their first meeting. 30 years to become the best version of humanity we can be. As the decades passed, Thomas watched as humanity transformed. Sustainable energy solutions, once considered Economically unfeasible became standard as nations competed to appear progressive to their future guests. Earth's orbit filled with new satellites and stations, a necklace of human achievement encircling their home planet. 28 years after the signal's reception, Thomas stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the massive orbital platform, built specifically for first contact. At 93, he had never expected to live long enough to see this day, but medical advancements spurred by the global renaissance had given him the chance. Director Reed, they've entered the system. Ellie, now in her 70s herself, reported through his earpiece. Telescopes have confirmed an object decelerating near Jupiter's orbit. Thomas gazed out at Earth below, beautiful and fragile in the blackness of space. Humanity had not achieved perfection in these 30 years. There were still inequalities, disagreements and failings, but they had made remarkable progress. They had united in purpose, if not always in practice. "We're ready," he replied, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "Humanity has waited for this moment since we first looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone." As the visitor ship approached, visible now as a distant point of light growing steadily brighter, Thomas thought back to that original message sent into the darkness 50 years ago. "We're here, waiting for you." And now, they had arrived.